Good afternoon, and welcome to the special meeting of the City of Glendale Commission on the Status of Women. Our meetings are now open to the public and can still be viewed on local cable, Charter Cable Channel 6, and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. The meeting can also be viewed online at www.glendaleca.gov by scrolling all the way to the bottom of the page and selecting Live Streaming, which is the third icon from the left. Members of the public are welcome to provide public comments and questions in person or can call in during the meeting at 818-937-8100. City staff will submit these questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person during the Commission on the Status of Women meeting. May I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Brusalian,
Present.
Commissioner Khojayan,
Present.
Commissioner Lambelat,
Present.
Mr. Mergen,
Present.
Chair Perrion,
Present.
ex officio Gonzalez,
Present.
ex officio Ruff.
Present.
Item 2, regular business agenda. Item 2A, report of the recorder regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for the May 9, 2022 special meeting of the Commission on the Status of Women was posted on May 6, 2022 on the bulletin board outside of City Hall. Item 3, introductions and presentations. Item 3A, presentation, Adventist Health Glendale Center for Behavioral Health and Recovery, Dr. Ramela Markarian.
It's on. It's on.
Oh, thank you.
Should I repeat that?
Definitely thank you for having Adventist Health Glendale here this evening. As mentioned, Stephen Stubbs, I'm the Director of Business Development at Adventist Health Glendale. I work very closely with Ramela, and I'm happy to be here in person, I think as everybody else, so it's nice to have an in-person meeting. So about our behavioral medicine unit, I'll share a little bit about the unit. So it's an inpatient psychiatric unit at Adventist Health Glendale. It's a 60-bed acute care facility. We get a lot of our referrals come directly from the emergency department and also from community physicians that also do direct admits to the hospital there. We have an average of about 1,000 patients a month since the beginning of the year, so it's a very busy unit. Our average length of stay is typically about 11 days for those patients. We have a partial hospitalization program, and that program is there to support both the direct referrals from the community physicians, because community physicians can refer those patients to that program. So it's a little bit like an outpatient program that we have there, and also too it works with discharge. So once we have patients who are finished with their acute care, with their inpatient care, then we may discharge them, and they can continue on through this partial hospitalization program. As you may know, Adventist Health Glendale is a faith-based, we're mission-oriented, so we're always focused on giving back to the community and being part of the community. So a lot of our patients, we have a 50% Medi-Cal population that come to the hospital. So we do have well-insured patients. We also have 50% of those that are indigent or through the Medi-Cal program. And back to our mission and how we're dedicated to both to the community and to the patients' families. About several years ago, we completed a major capital renovation to the inpatient unit. And if you've ever been on a psych unit before, sometimes you may know that those typical areas sometimes are ignored or they're not updated, but we're committed to the community in doing that. So whereas I can't say that it's the Taj Mahal, it's still a very nice unit, and it's nice for the families too as they come in there to care for their loved ones. And I mentioned that we do work closely with the City of Glendale. So we also have a substance abuse program. And so that's where we work closely with the city of Glendale as far as on the discharge of those patients. So once those patients do get discharged, if they do come in for substance abuse, we do work with the city of Glendale on those patients and follow through. That's through, as I mentioned, the partial hospitalization program, but we also have a telehealth program too that's there to support those patients. I personally have worked closely with both our physicians in the unit, with the leaders there at the unit, and also too with the community physicians on our behavioral medicine program. I do recruitment at the hospital, and a few years ago I just did an ad hoc survey and asked a lot of the community physicians as far as what was their number one need as far as recruitment. So you can imagine sometimes that's either cardiology, that's orthopedics, but their number one need that came up out of that was through behavioral medicine and also to substance abuse. And that was across the board. You know, we serve the communities of Burbank, we serve the communities of La Crescenta, Montrose, and Glendale, but a lot of those physicians mentioned that substance abuse and psychiatric care was their number one need that they have. One other thing too about our program is that it is considered adults, so primarily it is adult care that we have. We do have older adolescents, so we do work closely with the colleges as far as, especially with COVID and a lot of the things that had happened during COVID, virtual meetings and everything. We did have actually a lot, we saw a large uptick in college students that came through. So that was, a result of that time period. So our main patient population is adults, but on the periphery of that, we do see older adolescents, college age, and then we do see some older patients too. We don't have a dedicated Geri Psych program, but we do see an older senior care population. So if there's any questions, I can definitely, any detailed questions about the unit, I'm more than happy to answer questions generally, but more than happy, I can direct the group to Lazaro Mina. He's our director over the program, and he's been there. He's been with the hospital for, I believe, over 10 years, and he's been our director for the last several months. But thank you so much for having Adventist Health Glendale here to present about our program, and I'm more than happy to take any questions about the unit.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbs, for your presentation. I would like to ask any of the commissioners if you have any questions. Thank you, Commissioner Pajano.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stubbs, for this informative information.
Sure.
As you mentioned that the referrals comes from community physician and from emergencies. Is there any contact with other organizations in the community that they deal with this kind of behavior?
The direct organizations that I do know of is that it is with the school. So we do have a program, I believe, with the colleges and also directly with the city of Glendale. There's other, we do work, there's the FQHCs, sometimes we may get, but oftentimes the FQHCs will refer to a physician or a psychiatrist, and then that will refer back through to us. As I mentioned, with the Medi-Cal population that we do see, there are going to be patients that do come from the FQHCs. And Glendale has, as you may know, Glendale does have a high number of FQHCs that are here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead. Ex officio Gonzalez.
So you mentioned that your unit serves older people, like the elderly, and also college students. But is there a separate unit that works specifically with teens that are in high school?
We don't have a dedicated adolescent program. And that actually is a need that I would share. In talking with several of the physicians and the former director of the program, we do know that there is a need. But we specifically don't have a dedicated adolescent pediatric unit. So sometimes for those, we'd refer those either Children's Hospital or other programs. I think there's a program, some outpatient programs in Pasadena that I know of. But as far as acute care for young pediatrics and young adolescents, we do not have. But older adolescents, we do, about I believe it's 18 plus.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Lambalon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbs. I was wondering about the homeless population. Is a large percentage of your patients homeless? And if so, has that changed over the last couple of years?
From what I know, that stayed pretty consistent. In actuality, I take that back. When I was talking to the director today, during COVID, that had increased to a certain extent. So we did see some dips during COVID, and that was primarily, as everybody, they did not want to come into the hospital, even the homeless population. But we average about 17, since the beginning of the year, we've averaged about 17 homeless population in the unit. And we work with them too. I think we work with the city of Glendale with the homeless population. So I do know that. And it's a combination of a definitive psychiatric care and some substance abuse too with the homeless population. But there again, as I mentioned, we're dedicated to that population. Even upon discharge, we work with the city of Glendale. And then we also provide certain free services to the homeless population. So they do receive that care. And there are some programs that we work with where they do receive free medication, either to help them with their addiction or to help them with their programs. And that's 1 month after discharge. So that particular population we do work closely with to make sure that they receive the appropriate care upon discharge and then continue to see that. And there's also a program, I believe, where they can receive medication delivered to them through student programs. That's also we participate in, and we may not manage that directly, but we do participate with a provider to do that.
Ex officio Roth.
Hi, thank you again for coming and speaking to us. So you mentioned that there are 60 beds, right, currently?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and also that this specific inpatient program serves multiple districts, right?
It's we call it our service area.
Yeah.
So our service area takes care of Burbank, the foothills, actually a little bit of Pasadena too, and Glassell Park, a little bit of Glassell Park, and Silver Lake, and Atwater Village.
So I was curious, what happens when the program fills up? I mean, we know that there was a rise in mental health cases and people checking into programs over the pandemic. So what happens when the program becomes full?
Our highest census, I believe, what I was told was 44. So that was during the peak, it was 44. But during COVID, there was a lot of valleys with that. A lot of the LA County hospitals, I've worked in healthcare now for 25 years. So LA County hospitals are actually, I think, have a very well-organized program as far as discharge and management of patients. So not just for psychiatric care, but typically if there are units that do have a census that are higher than their bed capacity, then they'll work with other hospitals to take care of those. And there's Huntington Hospital has an inpatient psych unit, so most of the times, the majority of times, all the time in fact, patients we always find a home for the patients.
Commissioner Samardzian, please.
Hello, and thank you again for joining us. In terms of statistics regarding women and girls, what is the main issue that we're facing in our community?
In regards to psychiatric care or in regards to in general?
In regards to psychiatric care.
Yeah, psychiatric care, honestly, I would have to direct you to our director over the program, so I wouldn't have a specific answer about that. It's from what I understand, it hasn't been so much a gender issue. It's really more of an age and substance abuse problem. And so that I think has been the focus, really, is just it's age and either indigent, homeless, insurance, low insured, and as mentioned about the young adolescents. So from what on the perimeter of what I've seen, it really has been more of an age problem as opposed to a gender kind of, higher or lower.
Commissioner Brusalian, please.
Hi, thank you for being here. You said there's about 1,000 patients a month coming into your program. Out of those 1,000 patients, how many of those are substance abuse versus organic psychiatric issues?
That's a good question too, and I can get back to you on that and provide a specific answer. That's one piece that the director would have on that one, so I wouldn't have a specific answer on that one.
And since you don't have a Jerry psych ward, where do you refer people that are, geriatric cases? Due to a lot of medication imbalances and things like that, where do you refer them to? USC Verdugo Hills or?
Those are oftentimes best served by memory care facilities. So those are long-term acute care facilities. And I believe as far as the Jerry Psych program, I believe it's the UCLA program up in Sylmar, Mountain View. Mountain View, I believe, has a Jerry Psych program. Reimbursement's a little different for that on Jerry Psych, but most of the times our discharges would be to find them a facility that specifically takes care of Jerry Psych and the appropriate long-term acute care for memory care, Alzheimer's, and those other programs that would support that.
And when you said that the homeless population, you see a lot of them going there due to substance abuse. Where are they getting all these substances?
That's a good question, and I think that's a question for Los Angeles, all of our cities here in Southern California. Okay. And it's an area that I've worked with a lot of our community physicians, primary care physicians, pediatricians. So as far as the source, that's a good question. I think that's a question we all have to ask ourselves and as city leaders. We're, as a hospital, we're the recipients of that. Being I'm a native of Glendale, native of Southern Californian, I do remember the times that we've seen, substance abuse, and honestly, this is the worst I've seen it living here. So, the question as far as where those individuals are receiving them, I think that's a question, for all of us have to answer. But as far as from the hospital perspective, we do care for those. We try to manage it as best as we can. And there again, I think that's in coordination with the city of Glendale and what we're doing to try to at least manage those patients. Once they do come through the emergency departments, we'll get them to the direct referrals. So our job really is to manage them once upon discharge. And so it's working closely with those resources to make sure that they're not coming back in. I think that's where we're effective at is that once we get them, we're trying to manage them obviously off to a better part of their life.
And what type of substances are we seeing that are most prevalent and the most difficult to treat?
It's specifically, there again, I think that's information as far as the data I can provide to you through our director over the program. But from what I've heard anecdotally from our physicians, it's a combination of illegal drugs and alcohol. Quite honestly, alcohol is number one, and that's a little bit community specific for us. But those are the primary: alcohol and illegal drug activity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stubbs, thank you for your presentation and taking the time to come out.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you so much. And there again, if there's any other questions I can ask, hopefully you have my information, and I can definitely direct you to our director of the program, and he can answer those for you. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item
Please.
4, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or discussion. Staff may refer the matter to the proper department for investigation and report. Chair Perry, there are no calls.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 5, consent items. Item 5A, approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting held on February 14, 2022.
May I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item before we take a vote? Have you watched? No. Okay. Good. Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brusalian,
Yes.
Commissioner Khojayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lamblot,
Yes.
Commissioner Simmergen,
Yes.
and Chair Perrin.
Yes.
Item 6, action items. Item 6A, update regarding ad hoc committees to support the 2019 to 2022 strategic plan for the Commission on the Status of Women. Item 6A1, motion providing further direction on ad hoc committees. This item is on the agenda to allow commissioners the opportunity to provide updates on the progress of their respective committees. If any are available, the commission also has the ability to add additional ad hoc committees as needed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Do any commissioners have updates on their committees they would like to provide? Vice Chair Lamblot?
Yes, Ms. Powers, did you want to report on the progress of the Mount St. Mary's grant, or should I speak to it? If you don't mind, please feel free. Thank you.
Mandatory workshop for those who were receiving grants, which the commission is one of them. They provided the various timelines that they want quarterly updates. There's one coming up shortly in May, understanding that there's a lot of the grantees that don't have any updates to provide at this time since it's so early. But they expressed that one of the things that they are really interested in is, as the various grantees go through their work, that they promote, they have a social media campaign about empowering women and how this grant is there to help women in the community. And so that they ask that we help promote that messaging. They have a social media toolkit that we can use. Ultimately, their commission logo will end up on the report itself. So at this point, we're getting the grant agreement signed and over to the State Commission, and then we can begin conversations with Mount St. Mary's University as far as the memorandum of understanding and just a professional services agreement that we can execute with them for the report, and work with Commissioners Lambalot and ex officio Roth on some of the details of what will go into the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Just to recap, at the last meeting, Ms. Powers reported that we were applying for a grant from the California Commission on the Status of Women, and we were one of how many who were awarded grants? Do you remember? It wasn't, the numbers were, the number of applicants was large, and so it was really great that we actually got it. I think we applied for 30,000 and we were awarded 25,000.
Yes,
Is that
that's
correct? So, yes.
Actually, I believe it was 120 applicants.
And I don't know
Or
how many, I don't recall how many actually received the grants.
Yeah.
I believe that's the number of, Chair Perrin is referencing the number of recipients.
Okay.
But I believe there was many, many more
Many
applicants.
more, yeah, who applied. So it's a really wonderful thing. That means we don't have to spend, our funds to get it. And as I mentioned last time, I would just like to again recognize and thank Ms. Powers for, one, finding out and discovering that these grants were available, two, doing the work on the application with very little help from the rest of us. And 3, following through, attending the onboarding meeting that you just mentioned. And so clearly, without Ms. Powers' help and guidance and insight, we would not have received this grant. So thank you again.
And I'd like to thank the California State Commission on the Status of Women for selecting Glendale Commission on the Status of Women to grant us the funds. It is a huge honor, and I'm sure we will use it to the best of their expectations.
Are there any other updates or any other ad hoc activity that the commission would like to discuss that could happen now? If not, we can move on to the next item.
Okay, so next item. Oh, perhaps this would be a good time to mention that the need for developing the next strategic plan for the Commission on the Status of Women.
Yes,
Okay.
Chair Perry and members of the commission, our strategic plan is set to expire this year. So now would be an appropriate time for the commission to start discussing the next strategic plan. For the formation of an ad hoc would be an appropriate action for the commission to take to explore what that strategic plan would look like, to bring a report back to the commission at the next meeting on what some possible next steps are. So if there's anyone interested in that, that could be something that is established here today.
I would be interested.
As I would as well.
So would I.
If there are going to be 3 members of the commission, we will be required to Brown Act these meetings and have them available to the public.
Okay.
So we can move
So-
forward.
I can join, no problem.
We can join if it's going to be.
I'm so sorry. Will you please repeat that, Commissioner Kojayan?
I can join this committee, I mean, this ad hoc committee if I can.
Again, when we form subgroups that makes up almost a majority of, well, actually makes up more than a majority of the group, then we would be required to Brown Act the committee meetings. We'll have to just double check to make sure if they would have to be televised. I don't think they will be because it's just it's supposed to be a subgroup. Calendaring just becomes somewhat difficult when we're trying to balance multiple agendas, but it can be done. I don't want to discourage anyone from participating. So we can look into that, we can bring that back, and if in fact that's the case, then we could, I mean, if you'd like to form it in that way, or at least give us some direction as to maybe an appointment process by the chair or something, so that we don't have to come together as a committee to take a vote on it, because I know it's quarterly meetings. So we can certainly move forward with providing further direction at this point, and then assembling either with a quorum or with a smaller number. And if it's with a quorum, it'll be agendized, and if it isn't, then it doesn't have to be. So we'll make it work, I guess, that's just my point.
Chair Perry, I think that the work of the ad hocs is much more efficient if we do it, in a forum where there's just 2 commissioners and perhaps a student ex officio. So I'm willing to not volunteer if that creates the quorum and then triggers the Brown Act. I think it's much less useful.
I agree.
if we do it that way.
Well, as an ex officio member, I would love to be a part of the ad hoc if possible.
I would love to as well.
Thank you.
So that, I think we're just looking at which 2 commissioners are looking to put their name in, so that, are you clear on who?
If there's a problem, I withdraw.
Me too.
We have no.
At this point, we have Chair Perrian and our student ex officios, which of course don't impact you don't trigger the Brown Act requirements, so it's appropriate for the 2 ex officios to stay on, and we have Chair Perrian. If there's one additional,
Diana.
Okay, I think I'm elected, so I will be happy to serve. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Perrin, for bringing it up.
Because
I'm glad we settled.
because I
You got us all
voted with me.
excited.
So at this point, we would just have a motion establishing an ad hoc committee for purposes of exploring the CSW's next strategic plan, which would be made up of Chair Perry and Vice Chair Lambalot and our two student ex officios. If someone could make that motion, please, in a second.
I'll motion.
Thank you.
I'll second. May I ask? Okay.
Chair.
And the chair.
She can second if she
Okay.
passes the gavel.
Oh, okay, I withdraw then.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay.
Commissioner Brusalian?
Yes.
Commissioner Kojayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambalat?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmergen?
Yes.
Chair Perrin?
Yes.
Item 6B, legislative update. Item 6B1, motion providing direction on state legislation.
Chair Perry and members of the commission, I have a rather lengthy presentation for you as we have 5 new bills to go over. And so the California State Legislature reconvened on January 3rd of this year for the first year of their new 2-year session and had until February 18th to introduce new legislation. For the newly introduced bills, the state legislature has until this May 27th to pass bills out of their House of Origin. And as of the last meeting, the commission had 2 bills on its legislative agenda that it had already taken action on. One was AB 1287 regarding price discrimination based on gender. This bill has passed through the Assembly already and is currently in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And there's also Senate Bill 914 regarding local and state support and guidelines for homeless domestic violence survivors and the data systems that are used to support these individuals. And that bill is still in the Senate. It hasn't gone out of the Senate yet and is in the Appropriations Committee. So at this time before you, there are 5 additional bills introduced in this legislative session that are being presented for consideration by the Commission, which are in line with the Commission's adopted legislative platform. Based on the Commission's actions on these bills, staff will pass along the Commission's recommendations for City Council approval, and letters of support or opposition will be signed by the mayor and distributed as needed. So the first bill for the Commission's consideration is Assembly Bill 1467 by Assemblymember Cervantes regarding student safety sexual assault procedures and protocols. It would require public colleges and universities to have a sexual assault counselor independent from the campus Title IX office. The counselor would need to be appointed based on experience and a demonstrated ability to effectively provide sexual violence victim services and response. The bill would also prohibit the sexual assault counselor from notifying the university or any other authority of the identity of the victim or any witnesses surrounding the reported sexual misconduct. AB 1467 has passed out of the Assembly and is currently in the Senate. It's been referred to the Education and Judiciary Committees for hearings. Staff recommends support of this bill as it establishes the independence of sexual assault counselors on college campuses in an effort to support survivors of sexual assault. AB 1467 is also supported by the California Women's Caucus as priority legislation. The next bill for the Commission's consideration is AB 2424 by Assemblymember Friedman regarding health care coverage for diagnostic imaging. This bill would require health care service plans or health insurance policies to provide coverage for screening and mammography, necessary diagnostic or supplemental breast exams, or testing for screening or diagnostic purposes upon referral. It would prohibit these service plans and insurance policies from imposing cost sharing for these procedures. AB 2424 is currently in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Staff recommends support of this bill as it helps reduce the financial barriers for women who are seeking testing and diagnostic services to screen for breast cancer. And AB 2424 is also supported by the California Women's Caucus as priority legislation. The third bill for the Commission's consideration is AB 2185 by Assemblymember Weber regarding forensics examinations regarding domestic violence. This bill would provide a domestic violence victim access to medical evidentiary examinations free of charge and would also create a funding system to reimburse qualified healthcare professionals for administering these exams. AB 2185 is in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Staff recommends support of this bill as it provides equitable access for all domestic violence victims as they attempt to come forward and break the cycle of violence. AB 2185 is also supported by the California Women's Caucus as priority legislation. The fourth bill for the Commission's consideration is Senate Bill 976, authored by Senator Leyva, which would establish the Universal Preschool Act. And that would expand access to and operation hours for the state preschool programs to all 3- and 4-year-old children, regardless of family income. It would help parents access schooling and care options for their young children that allow for flexible hours, such as early drop-off, late pickup, weekend care, or year-round care. SB 976 is currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee and scheduled to be heard today. Staff recommends support of this bill as it helps support working parents to have affordable, reliable, and accessible childcare. SB 976 is also supported by the California Women's Caucus as priority legislation. And the final bill for the Commission's consideration is SB 1207, authored by Senator Portantino, regarding healthcare coverage for maternal and pandemic-related mental health conditions. This bill would require healthcare service plans or health insurance policies to provide coverage for maternal mental health conditions and pandemic-related mental health conditions. It would require maternal mental health programs to include quality measures to encourage screening, diagnosis, treatment, and referral, and would also encourage the inclusion of coverage for doulas. The bill aims to improve maternal mental health support by providing outreach services, education, and access to mental health treatment. SB 1207 is currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee and scheduled to be heard today as well. Staff recommends support of this bill as it aims to better support women struggling with maternal mental health and wellness during pregnancy and after childbirth. SB 1207 is supported by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists District 9, among other organizations. That concludes presentation of the bills. I'd be happy to answer any questions the Commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powers, for reading through all that. I have a few questions. A lot of these bills, I'd like to ask where the funding would come for these services.
Some of them have additional taxing mechanisms, some of them that the organizations would have to absorb themselves. For example, the schools, I could go through and identify those for you.
Yes, please. I would like
For
to
all
see
of
the
them?
taxing impact on individuals for all of this to better understand the whole picture. Regarding SB 976, you indicated weekend care.
Yes, that is
So,
included in that.
in a nutshell, all of the schools would require to have somebody at the school for parents to drop off their kids over the weekends, or I'm not clear on that.
It would be for these particular age groups that there be access to weekend care.
So all 3- and 4-year-old children, so if they're going to daycare or preschool, then it would be available 7 days a week?
That's my understanding.
Yes, please.
I'd like to piggyback on Chair Perrian's question, and that is, are the existing preschools and the existing daycares going to be required to have that access, or to provide access for those weekends and hours available?
Commissioner Rusalian, to answer that question, I don't believe existing ones are going to be forced to have that. It's just the creation of these programs that will allow parents to access those. Currently, for the most part, any daycare program for 3- and 4-year-olds are all private programs at this time. There is transitional kindergarten. It's very limited and the hours are very limited. So this bill attempts to expand on that transitional kindergarten, which is typically the age 4, the 4 to 5 age, and provide a fuller day of service because it's typically a half day, which is wonderful for children to be able to have access to that, but becomes somewhat prohibitive for families who cannot go and pick up their children in the middle of the day, and then what do they do with their children for the rest of the day? So this would be to establish the Universal Preschool Act that would allow for certain places, like a public institution, to have daycare and preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds that is available to those who cannot afford private preschool care. My understanding of it.
So new facilities would be created for this?
Or yes, or it would be an expansion perhaps of schools having these programs.
Schools. And what about people looking to open up some of these facilities in neighborhoods, like say a single-family neighborhood, and they have a 5-bedroom and they want to convert it into a preschool? Can they do that?
I believe currently that is allowed in certain
Yeah.
zones. I mean, I have seen in single-family neighborhoods, you have just like you have home health for adults, there's childcare centers
I
that are
think they have to be
home-based.
within a certain mile radius of each other or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair Lambola?
Oh, I just had a comment. It refers to state preschool programs, so I'm assuming it doesn't apply to private preschool programs. Is that correct?
That is my understanding,
Thank you.
Commissioner Lambola.
Chair
I need some
Kojala?
Thank you. I need some clarification about the Bill 2424, about the coverage and diagnostic imaging. I understand that Commissioner Perrin said about the fund, how the fund is going to, from where?
I believe the Appropriations Committee is going to have a summary, and then whenever the legislators vote on it, they take that into consideration.
What Commissioner Submergent is referring to is when bills have a certain cost associated with them, they go to the Appropriations Committee. And the Appropriations Committee essentially decides whether those bills with a higher funding burden, so to speak, will pass out of the committee or not. And it's basically like a make or break point for certain bills. And there might be changes made and concessions made at that time as far as what the funding sources will be. Do my best to go through some of these now and go through, what the funding sources will be, but a lot of times it is either a new fee associated with it, or the organization is asked to absorb that cost. For example, with accessory dwelling units, the state passed ADUs, and we have an increase in a huge increase in permits for folks who are wanting to build accessory dwelling units on their property, and there's no funding mechanism for us to hire additional planning staff to process those permits, yet it's something that the state, enacted to increase housing production, and organizations are required to adapt to keep up with some of that legislation is what happens.
So, for me personally, I would like to have the full picture in terms of the impact, as you indicated, from the arbitration committee, in order to make a more informed decision whether I would want to support or abstain or not support any of these bills. Okay.
May I?
Sorry, ex officio Roth?
Sorry, I had a question originally about the bill, but I don't know if Ms. Powers is going to be able to answer, or maybe another commissioner could answer. But I was curious, so for people who can't afford to go to private preschool, are they automatically sent to these state-funded preschools? Because as Ms. Powers was saying, right, a lot of the hours are really short, so what are those people left doing? Is it going to these state-funded, like the ones that already exist, the programs you were talking about?
Ex officio Roth, as a parent, I can tell you that those programs don't exist, and that's what the state legislation is attempting to do. There is a program called Head Start that is available to low-income families, but it is not available to everyone, and childcare is fairly expensive, and it ends up taking a disproportionate amount of a family's income to provide that care, especially for working families. So that's what this bill is attempting to do, is to create these state-run programs, so it becomes like a public school, so to speak, public preschool, and have hours that support working families.
Ex officio Gonzalez?
Yes, I had a question about the bill SB 1207. So how long would the care, be extended for the post-pregnancy mental health related issues? Because if required, would it last indefinitely, or is there a cap to how long the care will last?
That is a very good question. Currently, there is no requirement, but I can check the details of the bill.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Lambalot?
Ms. Powers, would you remind us what the effect of us voting to support or not support is, the practical effect?
Sure. At this point, you are recommending legislation to city council, essentially. If you recommend city council support these bills, and what that would mean is a letter goes to our representatives or to any committee so our representatives being Assemblymember Friedman and Senator Portantino, to know where the city of Glendale stands on certain pieces of legislation. And then letters can also be sent to specific committees, so members of the Assembly or the State Senate as they meet, for example, in whether it's appropriations or the Education Committee, they would receive copies of these letters to understand what the city of Glendale's position is on these bills.
I don't know if this is possible or not, but I know the Appropriation Committee has a non-biased group that looks over everything and gives their recommendations. If that is available in time, if that's an issue about the fiscal impact and the budget, if it's in a timely manner, we could include those underneath. I think that would help us in the future if that's an issue.
Certainly noted, Commissioner Perry, and we'd have to take a little bit of a recess so I can answer your question as far as the financial impact on all of these and gather that for you. So I'm welcome to take a short recess if you'd like. So I can gather that information, and then in future reports, we can certainly make sure that that information is highlighted and included in the staff report that goes to the commission, so that you have that understanding of the fiscal impact to the state or to the organizations.
That would be appreciated.
Sure. So would you like to take a brief recess at this time?
At this meeting?
Yes, so I can give you this information so that you can make your informed vote, or would you like to move forward without the information? We can take a brief recess if you'd like.
It's, well, how long do you think it would take to gather this information? Is it something you can pass on afterwards?
Certainly be able to pass it on afterwards, absolutely. It would take a few minutes.
I'm sure it would, because I think this would take quite some time to collect all this information. You were bombarded with quite a few questions. So if it, all right with the rest of the commissioners, I would prefer that I would be okay with receiving this information and answers to all our questions at a later time. Okay.
So in other words, we defer voting on this until next meeting, is that correct?
That's at the commission's direction.
I guess I'm following the discussion, but what other questions other than funding are outstanding? Okay, so it was just the question of the funding, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you could either decide to move forward or take the recess. I don't think you can continue the item to a future meeting because of the time limits, so that would have to be done either at this meeting or not.
Or hold another special meeting to come back with that information in the very near future.
then perhaps, I mean, if it's something that you can collect in 15 minutes, do you think you can? 10, 15 minutes?
Yes.
Could I make a suggestion? Sure. I think alternative 3 is the commission may choose to not support any of the bills presented in this report and thus make no recommendation to council at this time. Can that change at the next meeting when there's additional information provided?
Yes, Commissioner Lambelat, that can, but to Ms. Varpetian's point is by August, a lot of this legislation will have already gone through
Okay.
Various committees. The timing as such, it would be more timely to do this
Okay.
now so
Now.
that this information can go to council and council can make their determination and express our support to our state legislatures sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Thank you.
I personally, on this one, would defer to the Appropriations Committee and their knowledge on their own budget, but moving forward, I think it would be nice to see that.
Thank you.
So then, are you making a motion to move forward with the recommendation?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brusalian?
Yes.
Commissioner Khojayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambelat?
Yes.
Commissioner Submergent?
Yes.
And Chair Perrin.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear. So this motion is saying we're supporting all of this?
Yes, so Commissioner Submergent made a motion saying she'd like to move forward with, she's comfortable moving forward with supporting these bills as presented, understanding in the future the fiscal impact will be included. And at this time, you're welcome to vote for it, vote against, or you may also abstain if you don't feel comfortable voting for it at this time.
Okay. I will abstain.
Thank you.
Item 7, reports, information only. Item 7A, update on fall 2021 season of Girls on the Run in Glendale.
Commissioner Perry and members of the commission, Chair Perry and members of the commission, I apologize. We have an update from Girls on the Run. Molly Snow, the executive director of Girls on the Run, was going to be here today to share her update for the fall season in Glendale. But unfortunately, she was at a 5K this weekend and was feeling under the weather, and out of an abundance of caution and respect for the health and safety of our commissioners, asked that I pass along her update, and she would be very excited to join you at a future meeting. Was sorry to miss it, but wanted to be careful. And so she asked that we share this update with you. She wanted to let you know that the fall season of Girls on the Run at Cerritos Elementary was an overwhelming success. They ended up having 18 girls register for the program, whereas typically you have a team of 15 to 20 girls, so they had a good participation. The team was led by an experienced returning Girls on the Run LA volunteer head coach and was very well supported by the school's administration. The total amount of the scholarship support provided to this large team was over $7,000, which was made possible by the generous gift from the commission. Even more importantly, perhaps, was that the power of that financial support. This gift ensured that Girls on the Run is able to return to Cerritos Elementary campus at a time when they were hearing from schools just how desperate families were to have social and emotional support, mentor-based programming, and safe spaces for peer interactions, especially after the hard-hitting emotional effects of COVID. Girls on the Run of LA is truly grateful to the Commission for their support during such a challenging time for girls and families. Ms. Snow also asked that we share a short video with you, which we have on the screen here, that Ms. Harapetian will play shortly. Thank you.
How do you measure a girl's potential? Do you find a yardstick and mark her progress? Do you grade her on a scale from 1 to 10? How do you measure something as immeasurable as a girl's potential? You don't. You support her, you encourage her, and you teach her how to unleash her power on the world. At Girls on the Run, we're more than a running program. We believe that every girl deserves the chance to boldly pursue her dreams. And we're on a mission to make sure all girls understand how limitless their potential is, from handling social pressure and reframing negative thoughts to dealing with challenges at home and at school. Our unique lessons are taught by dedicated volunteer coaches who help girls develop life skills and strategies they can use in all areas of their lives. A recent independent study led by Dr. Maureen Weiss, an expert in positive youth development, found that it's this combination, our intentional life skills curriculum and highly trained coaches, that is key to our program's impact. And that impact is something we can measure. Because of Girls on the Run, 85% of girls said that they were able to manage their emotions. 80% reported they were able to resolve conflicts. 90% said they helped others. And 91% agreed they had learned intentional decision-making. In total, 97% of girls said they learned critical life skills at Girls on the Run that they are using at home, at school, and with their friends. Girls who were least active at the start of the program increased their physical activity by more than 40%. The study also found that the program inspired a long-term impact that positively changed girls during the 10-week program and beyond. 85% improved in confidence, competence, caring, character, or connection to others. Overall, the study showed that participating in Girls on the Run transformed girls' lives by helping them increase their self-confidence, develop healthy relationships, and feel good about themselves. Seeing this transformation is extraordinary, but being part of it can be absolutely life-changing. At an age when girls are constantly trying to measure up to ideas of who they should be, when they're still discovering who they are, Girls on the Run shows them that their potential isn't just enormous, it's beyond measure.
Thank you. That concludes the presentation. If there's any questions by the commission, we'd be happy to do our best to answer them, or we can pass them along to Ms. Snow so that she can answer them for you.
Any questions?
No.
Next item. Thank you.
Item 8, Commission on the Status of Women, staff comments.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Kojana? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If it's okay, it's a little
Certainly.
long, unless you want to go first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I attended the report on the status of women and children. It was a domestic violence during the pandemic forum. And I'd just like to read a few things that I took from the meeting. And I want to be able to read my writing because I was writing so fast. So excuse me for any misspeaks. So women are experiencing more stress today versus 2020, pre-2020. The mental health pandemic will peak. It's in its peak now. A lot of women delayed their physical exams. 67% of women delayed their physical exams due to the pandemic. Awareness is more prevalent today than before for mental health. 1.1 million women left their jobs during the pandemic. And they found that women need systemic breaks from work and their work days and their weekdays, just to have that mental break. And a lot of us women don't realize that we just need, just a couple of hours just to ourselves. They've burned out. We've burned out, and women have more responsibilities now more now than ever. And there's 6 causes of burnout. One is, as you know, overworking. We don't know how to limit ourselves. Lack of control. What to do first. Which one do I take on first? Are my kids, the food, my work, my laundry? Which one is it? And we don't experience that rewarding effect. It's just an expectancy. We're not recognized for any of our acknowledgments. We're not acknowledged for a lot of things, which brings us to loneliness. from remote working. We're remote working a lot, or we were, but we get lonely in the rut. I call it Groundhog Day every day. There's lack of fairness for diversity and inclusion. Mismatched skills. We might have skills that we're not using in our work that we could and make things better. We're always geared to go from 0 to 100 at all times for everything. We're experiencing brain fog, a lot of brain fog during the pandemic, searching for words, as I'm doing right now. It's difficult to make decisions, losing focus quickly. Small tasks, the smallest of tasks become enormous. Health stats are worse for African American women versus white women, 3 times. It was alarming. Prevention strategies, let's see here. Heart disease is preventable. Go get your exams, ladies. Let's see here. We need inner peace. Again, take a couple hours. Take that break. You deserve it. Don't sweat the small stuff. We gotta, pick our battles. Exercise, very, very important. We always set that aside, and I, for one, have done that recently, and I just want to get back out there and take that time for myself. Again, take a break. Sleep. We've got to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a day, but that's not happening. We know that. Burnout creates depression. It does. Eat well. Let's see. Connect with others. This pandemic has really done a number on a lot of us. Remote this, remote that. Let's start connecting again and meet each other in person and get out of that Groundhog Day. Cut the guilt. Don't guilt yourself for not getting things done or doing certain things. And be compassionate to yourselves. And that's all I have today.
Thank you, Commissioner Busalian.
I'll second that.
Any other comments?
Yes,
Commissioner Kojayan?
Yes. On April 24, I attended the city of Glendale that presented 21st annual Armenian genocide. It was commemorative event honors the life of 1.5 million men, women, and children who suffered and perished 107 years ago. The chairperson was our mayor, Ardi Katsakian. He presented and he was excellent, and it was unforgettable, touchy event. Thank you for City of Glendale that is presenting this event, and thank you for the employees who participated in the committee. Special thanks to Christine, who was the participant. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kojayan. I will echo your recognition of Ms. Powers. You're quite the busybody at the event. And any other commissioner comments? Ex officio role?
So I'm pretty sure last month, April, was Mental Health Awareness Month, and I was curious if our commission specifically has any currently even initiatives for mental health for women.
Make sure this is on. Ex officio, what we don't have in Office of Women's Health or offer direct health services in the city of Glendale. Through our Community Services and Parks Department, we have a Glendale Continuum of Care, which provides services to our homeless. We also have youth and senior services. So while they're not specifically focused on women, they do focus and address, in addition to other services, do address mental health. In our library, we also have a dedicated social service worker, and they are there to help our homeless and transient population that accesses and utilizes our libraries. to connect with them and to provide some sort of casework and resources to them. So while we don't have specific, initiatives for women, that the city does do its best to reach out to the community and provide services, generally speaking, for mental health.
Okay, thank you. And I had one more question. So I know that we just listened to a report on how, especially after the pandemic, exercise is especially important. And I know that based on the presentation, we gave funding to Girls on the Run. Did we also support any other, exercise-driven programs for women, or do we just support that program?
To answer your question, ex officio, Roth, that is a specific program and a specific organization that historically the commission has supported in various different ways. And so there aren't a number of programs. The commission tends to focus specifically on certain organizations or certain programs. So that's one that was just recently done. But certainly in the future, other programs, the commission can look at other programs too. And if there's any feedback you have, you're welcome to provide that to us too, if there's organizations you think that deserve the commission's attention.
Okay, I'll definitely do some research. Thank you so much.
Any staff comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. May we make a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to adjourn.
I
second.
Meeting adjourned at 5:10.